Blessings and welcome to Inner Child Reparenting. I want to welcome you to this moment, and I want to thank you for being bold enough to explore in this area. The reason for doing this event is that much of what we experience that we would consider to be emotional pain, emotional distress, mental conflicts, and upsets of all kinds, much of that we experience as adults is related to, in a sense, broken off aspects, split off aspects of the child self. Now, of course, that happened in childhood, and as you can imagine, the child was overwhelmed by something. And so what that means is the child was experiencing something. That is, you were experiencing something that was a bit more than you could handle. Maybe it was a mild upset. It could be anything from a mild upset to a medium upset to an extreme upset. In all these cases, it was a little bit too much, and so, in a sense, you maintained your sanity by pushing the pain or by pushing the confusion or the sadness off to the side, or maybe you just pushed it in a direction deeper into the body. Maybe you atomized it. Maybe it just released. We are going to be doing a centering exercise to bring ourselves into the present moment, because here's the interesting thing. The more you can be present in present time in your body, it becomes easier and easier to do deep work on your deeper issues. So I'm just going to look at everybody's aura, and I want everybody to breathe into your body and start to feel an energetic rapport with the center of the earth. So there is an energetic rapport between your body and the center of the earth. Good. Now, just slow down your breathing a little bit. That is good. Now, get a sense that as you breathe in, you're breathing in light. Very good. Now, get a sense that anything that you don't need from the day, you can release. And just actually, with your free hands, with one or two hands, literally lift anything that you don't need out of your space so that you have a good, solid, quiet, sacred space to work in tonight. That's good. Okay. Now we can start exploring. Okay. Tune into the inner light and just make it up. It doesn't matter if you have a vivid visualization ability or not. Just tune into your inner light, and maybe you sense it as an inner warmth. Just know that it's there and get a sense that it has a voice. And start to blend the voice in your own conscious mind with that light. This will give you a sense that you can speak as the wise parent. Now remember, anything in metaphysics that we do is based on your ability to pretend that you can do something. Pretending is how you open up deeper places in your mind and your heart so that you can do this work. So you can pretend that you've got the voice of the wise parent. Now remember, this is the wise ideal parent. It's your essence. It's your potential. Do not copy your parents in this. This is for you. This is for you to activate the wise parent principle within yourself. And just tune into that. What I notice as I look at your auras now, you're actually more in your power, and there's a quieter, easier integration. Nice vibrational integration between your conscious self, your superconscious self. Now, we are going to go to the next step. The next step is get into the mode, get into the feeling. If you were holding a baby, and it doesn't matter if you have kids or not, what matters is get into the feeling of holding a baby. If that's a bit of a stretch, but if you happen to be a pet lover, imagine holding your dog or cat. Imagine that loving feeling. You are caring for somebody. This is the vibe that we want to access. You are caring for somebody, and that somebody happens to be the childlike self, the inner child. So you are cradling your inner child in your arms. And remember, You're just pretending. You're making this up. You don't have to visualize perfectly. Your visualization ability is good enough for doing this. Just imagine, just pretend, just go through the motions. And that's one of the powers of metaphysics. If you go through the motions, your mind picks it up, your energy picks it up, and it starts to happen. So you're cradling this baby, and we are going to start to establish the voice, the vibe, the feeling, the connection between you and the inner child. So as you cradle this baby that happens to be you, deep within yourself, begin to share, I love you, I care for you, I am here for you. I love you, I care for you, I am here for you. That is really nice. What it's bringing up for a number of people here, it's almost like a mild shock where something in the system is saying, I can't believe it. How could this be happening? And so as you communicate with the baby self that you are cradling in your arms, simply apologize if you haven't been as present as the baby might have wanted. So this is your inner child you're talking to. You say, I'm sorry that I haven't always been there for you. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be more present with you from now on. I'm going to be more present with you from now on. And it's at this point that we're going to address a question that was brought up. What if the inner child doesn't want to share? When you apologize sincerely, it becomes much easier for sharing to take place. There was also another question that was brought up, which was, how do you distinguish the voice of your parent self from the parents who raised you? The simple answer to that is, when you are tuning in to your baby self or your child self, and when you are speaking, just get a sense that you're speaking with the voice of you. You're speaking with your honest, from the heart, from the true self voice. And every time you do that, you'll start to recognize there is a real vibe, there is a sincere vibration that you have. And that will become evident to you. And your sense of that real, true voice of yours will build. Let's see how everybody's aura is looking with this. This is nice. We are getting some good healings and some good integrations. I wanted to address another question that came up. It doesn't matter in doing this work if your parents are still alive. Here is the deal with the answer to this question, and it relates to many questions, actually, of a related nature. When you do healing, you're healing energy patterns. You are healing energy patterns that have gotten into your body, mind, and spirit. Now, those patterns are alive, and that's the amazing thing. The patterns are alive within you until you heal them and release them. And so what does that mean if somebody lived in a past life, or what does it mean if your parents are no longer on this earth plane? It means that you still need to heal the patterns that are here, whether or not the parents are here in their physical bodies, just as you need to do healing upon patterns from childhood, even though you are not a child right now. Now, let's look at how everybody is doing. Okay. At this point, we're getting a lot more energy flowing through the aura. For some reason, this is bringing up quite a few patterns at the root chakra, at the pelvic floor, which makes sense because that's a primal survival-oriented chakra. And so what we're going to do is some healing work so that we can let go of fears. Now, tune into the baby, the child self that you are holding, and imagine with the hand that is at the lower part of the child's body that you are cradling the tailbone of the child self in your hands. And just do a gentle massage at the tailbone to release blocked energy. That's good. gently cradle, gently do gentle shifting. That's good. Excellent. Now, as you speak to the child self, as you do that, let's tune into the exact words that are needed. It is safe to let the fear release now. And actually visualize that from the child's tailbone and pelvic floor, trapped fear energy is wafting away like a cloud. Just imagine the stale energy wafts away like a cloud, gently massaging the sacrum tailbone of child, and you are saying the words, it is safe to let this go. It is safe to let this go. Yes. Beautiful. Okay. So everybody's soul has dropped into the body more. The reason I'm looking at your aura and giving you feedback, even though we're working on the inner child is ultimately you. Let's say juvenile element of you. So I'm looking at you in present time, and by you clearing the pattern in your inner child, that makes you, the adult in present time, look more integrated, and your energy is flowing nicely in the body. So before we move on, I want to find out if anybody has any comments or questions on what just happened, and if any clarification is needed, any assistance is needed.
So my question is, when you asked us to say to the child, I'm sorry, I haven't always been there for you, I had some kind of a reaction to that. Like, I don't know if it was guilt or whether it was, I don't know what it was exactly, but it didn't feel comfortable. And then, of course, we went on, so I suppressed whatever that was.
It is so brilliant that you brought that up, because we all have this issue, and we are going to address it right now. So this is the perfect time to do that. What we're going to do, tune into the parent self. Tune into the parent self, which is you. Tune into the part of you that realizes, oh, gee, this child self was fragmented, it was upset. Maybe I could have done something, but I didn't. So what I'm getting a sense we need to visualize that you're cradling your adult self and saying, there, you've been doing your best. I still love you. There. We're talking to the parent self now. The parent, you, the parent self. You're saying to that self, there, you've been doing the best job you could, and we're learning new skills, and now we can use those skills. So thanks for the job that you did, and thank you in advance for the job that you will do. Thanks for the job that you did, and thank you in advance for the job that you will do. Okay. Moving right along. Now, by the way, it mentioned in the write-up about making use of the cosmic healing chart. That's the chart that has the aura and the different graphs and things. If you have that, great. And if you don't, just really simply, anytime you want to make a really quick timeline, just draw a horizontal line on a piece of paper. Draw a horizontal line on a piece of paper to make a timeline, and draw a vertical line to have a depth scale, or also called a frequency scale. So a vertical line gives you quick and easy frequency scale. Okay, so pull those out or draw them up for yourself quickly. I want to show you something about using the timeline so that you can find the hidden issues that are happening for the child self. First thing, let's look at the horizontal line. And if you're looking at the chart that you printed out, it has a lot of colored lines. It's a horizontal line at the bottom of the chart. Notice that in one direction, it represents being towards the past. The other direction represents the future. Now, notice that you can use this in any creative way that you want. And what we basically want to do is move one of your fingertips slowly along the line so that whenever you're thinking about something or tuning into something, you can find out where your finger tends to want to go, where it tends to want to go. So tune into the child self now. Just imagine your child self and say to your child self, we are going to take a little trip. We are going to go through time, and I want you to help me find the place in time where you need some healing. Help me find the place where you need some healing. Okay? So slowly move your finger, and if the finger seems to slow down or it seems to stop somewhere, and of course at that point your logical mind is wondering, well, what in the world am I supposed to do now? So what you do, just imagine at that point in time that you can just open up a little window into whatever's happening there. Now, just to explain, opening up a window is just opening up a little space where you can tune into the vibe of what was happening at that point in time. Now, your logical mind might be asking, what year was it? That doesn't matter so much. We want to tune into the vibe. We want to get the feeling. We want to find out if there's something stuck. Now, here's what we're going to do. If there's a stuck place there, first, get into communication with the inner child. So you found a little stuck place in time. Now you're holding the child and saying, I, your parent self, your adult self, I'm going to help you through this. So get into communication. Say to the child, I will help you. And explain, we are going to go through this situation in a new, better way. We're going to go through this situation in a new way, in a better way. Now already the child is starting to spontaneously heal. We're getting some good spontaneous releases here. Now, here's where you can be as creative as you like. I'm going to give you some ideas to get you started. We are going to imagine walking through that scenario, the one that you accessed in the timeline. And remember, you might get details, and it might just seem kind of foggy, but the technique will work in any case. Just imagine going through that event, but this time the child is going through the event and you are holding the child's hand because this is a new day and a new reality. You are being the friend, the parent, the helper, the coach, the guide that the child needed. Now, as you know, when you go through a situation and you have somebody with you to coach you through it, it's totally different because you don't feel alone. Now, if you sense that there are bad people present in that scenario, if you sense that there are bad vibrations, or just things that are really provoking, just imagine that you step in to that scenario as an adult and show your child that you are going to step in and actively do something to help. So if you need to step in and say something or do something or take an action, whatever you need to do, just step in and do that so the child can see, oh, here's what happens when a good adult is present in that scenario. Now that was interesting because you are releasing a lot of stale old energy, a lot of stale old patterns. And I sense that the next step here is for you, look directly into the eyes, into the face of your child self. And tell your child self, let's work together from now on. Let's work together from now on. And share the idea, share the vibration and the words, we can work together. This can be fun. We can work together. This can be fun. Good. That's looking good. Yeah. Now, let's have everybody step into present time and get a sense that whatever you cleaned up at that point in time, that cleaned up energy, that harmonized energy, is now flowing through time. It has brought balance and healing to your timeline. And thus, it has brought balance and healing to you in present time. Yes. Good job. So, Any questions or comments about that?
I noticed that when I went to the timeline, my sister showed up and wanted me to take her hand as well.
Oh, very good. Now, this is a really good point. The creative approach is the correct approach. So whenever you're doing a technique and you suddenly get this insight or inspiration and something else needs to be done, you simply incorporate that. And always tell yourself when you do something creative or you incorporate things in a new way, tell yourself, this is the right approach. Now realize, of course, as in this particular case here, families are constellations, just like a constellation in the sky, and all the parts of the constellation are part of a system. They're part of a complete picture or a complete vibration, complete reality. And so it does make sense that a family member would show up, because it's possible that the challenges that you've been holding all these years are also held by the family, and it's possible that in releasing the problems of your inner child, you are actually effecting a change that is helping the family. Fabulous thing. Let's see how everybody is looking. We have a question. Yes, please.
Yes, when you mentioned to go back, I heard myself asking my inner child what was the point of origin where I lost my breath. And it took me to, and it's not my paradigm to do this, and it took me to another lifetime. So then I got confused because I was an adult in another lifetime being drowned.
Right.
And so I had a little bit of relief knowing, okay, that's where I lost my breath, and that makes sense. But then I didn't know what to do with a past lifetime, so I just asked it, can you show me in this lifetime? And it was my birth, and so I got resolution around that and was able to continue based on your instruction. But how do I get resolution around the past life?
Okay. First of all, I want to make a general comment that applies specifically to you, but it applies to metaphysics and healing in general. And that understanding is when you're working with a pattern, you can use a technique. And that technique, even if it's considered to be a past life technique or an inner child technique, well, really a technique is a technique. It's a means to do something. So the entire range of things that you have available to you to do healing with, you can do that for the inner child, you can do it for a past life. Now, what happens, as happened here and as will often happen, you're working on what seems to be a childhood issue, but a past life shows up. The reason it's so common for that to happen is that naturally, if something is unresolved, it's going to show up in childhood because it's not resolved. It's still resonating in your space. So naturally, it's going to show up in this lifetime. So often, when you're doing healing on yourself and others, you're going back and forth. You're jockeying between this time and that time. Sometimes you're working on a pattern, and you're working on a pattern when you were 2 years old, and it starts to resonate, as happened to you, with a birth memory, prenatal. Then you suddenly remember a similar thing that happened when you were 18 years old, and then past lives come in. It's a really creative approach because when you realize that these patterns are coming up in the order that they need to come up for healing, it's not a linear thing. It comes up the way it comes up. And so just be creative, just work with it. And remember, the techniques that you are learning this evening are great, but you know hundreds of other techniques. Make use of all the techniques that you know, and mix and match techniques always and often. Let's see how everybody's aura is looking, and let's see what you are ready for next. Okay. We are going to talk about the deeper levels of the inner child, and here's how we are going to approach this. Cradle your inner child in your arms. Now, you've seen those dolls. They're called Russian dolls, I think, where they have a doll inside of a doll inside of a doll, little carved wooden dolls, one inside the other. Get a sense that you can tune into a deeper level or a deeper layer of your inner child self. Now, this visualization, by the way, is a really handy technique, anytime you need to go deeper into something, deeper aspect of you or deeper aspect of anything or anyone. So you are holding the inner child. Now just feel into the space where the inner child is. Go a little bit deeper. Yes. Yes, I see that some people are approaching something that feels cold. In some cases it feels a little unconscious. Some cases petrified with fear. In some cases sad. Okay, so the full range of emotions and feelings is coming up when you reach deeper into the inner child self. Okay, now get into communication with the inner child. Now, notice the subtlety of this technique. You're going to say a positive affirmation, but you are going to say it into that deeper layer of the inner child. It's as if you're speaking more deeply into that self. And the first affirmation, we're going to tune into what is needed right here, right now. Say the words, you're speaking deep into the inner child. You are safe with me. You are safe with me now. I'm also sensing at this deeper level that we've just accessed of the inner child. The inner child is in tremendous self-judgment. The inner child hates feeling sad. The inner child hates feeling fear and anger and all this stuff. So we are going to establish, inner child, I love you even when you are feeling what you are feeling. Inner child, I completely love you even when you are feeling what you are feeling now. We are getting a lot of releases. And we're also getting some argument. We're getting some argument from the deep inner child voice. And the inner child is saying, but I am not permitted to have these feelings. I was never allowed to have these feelings. They were pushed down. I want you, the adult self that I'm speaking to right now, I want you to say to that deep place in the inner child, from now on, it is safe for you to have your feelings. From now on, it is safe for you to have your feelings. Also say, I always honor your feelings as they are. I always honor your feelings as they are. Ooh, nice. Now that was a deep clearing. You accessed something that had been hidden deep in the subconscious. You did a healing. You got a good release. And at this point, we want to introduce the concept that when something releases, sometimes it hangs around in the room as stagnant energy. So with one or both hands, if you would please lift the stagnant energy out of the room, see that stagnant energy releasing into light, or see the stagnant energy releasing into the cosmic center of the earth. Releasing into the cosmic center of the earth. That was nice. What I detect right now, this is quite interesting. There is a relatively greater clarity and ease in your nervous system, in your body, in your aura. It's a little bit new and a little bit unfamiliar. And so what I'd like for you to do right now, tune into your body and breathe into your body. And as you breathe in, get a sense that your breath is sweeping your body. As you breathe in and as you breathe out, it is creating a wave that sweeps through your body gently and easily. Breath sweeping through body. And I want you to say an affirmation to your present time self. Say it to your adult self right now. Say these words. Now it is safe for me to be integrated. Now it is safe for me to be integrated. Now it is safe for me to be integrated. I'm also sensing that everybody is becoming quite radiant There's some resistance to owning that. So we want to acknowledge the greater radiance. So if you would please now affirm, I am the light, and that's okay. I am the light, and that's okay. My power is comfortable to me. My power is comfortable to me. Okay. That was good. Okay. We are going to do some explorations with the frequency scale. So if you have that color chart printed out, it's on the right side of the chart. It is a vertical line, arrows pointing up and down. And if you've drawn one for yourself, just a vertical line on a piece of paper is fine. Okay. Now, this frequency scale we can use to raise a vibration of something. And so what we're going to do, you're cradling your inner child self. Cradling the inner child self. Now, while doing that, gently move up the frequency scale. And as you're moving your finger gently up the frequency scale, you are literally accessing the spectrum of vibrations that exist in the universe, and you are actually doing a healing for the inner child. Oh, I see. We need to do an affirmation to make that work. This is really interesting. Using the frequency scale suddenly brought up all these beliefs that change was not possible. Well, it's good that we access that at this juncture. So, as you move up the frequency scale and you raise the vibration for the inner child, just say the words, the universe permits me to heal. The universe permits me to heal. The universe permits me to heal. That is good. Now, just try moving your finger just a little bit at a time, slowly up and down the frequency scale, so you can get a sense of what it's like to raise vibrations, and if you need to lower them a bit. That's good. Now, tune into the inner child, and notice what happens when you move gently up and down the frequency scale. What we're doing here is getting practice with the frequency scale, but we're also getting practice with shifting the vibrations for the child self. Here's the thing. I have this sense that your child self, on a number of levels, has gotten frozen at a certain frequency. And so just the idea that you can change the frequency for the child self, this is going to be very liberating for you. Even affirm those words, I am allowed to shift the frequency for my child self. I am allowed to shift the frequency for my child self. Okay, that's good. Very nice. I tell you, as you release those patterns, there is so much heavy stuff flying out of your body and flying out of your aura. Let's have everybody use one or both hands, use your intention if your hands are busy. Lift the heavy, stale energy that released from your body. Lift it out of the room, release it into light, or release it into the center of the earth. Good. Getting lighter. This is interesting. What I find intriguing here is that as you raised your vibration, it makes everybody look stronger, and the child self of everybody is looking stronger and more integrated.
So when I was raising the vibration, or even before we even started that, I started to really get a lot of pain in the side of my thigh, my calf. And then as we released that, most of that went when I released it into the ground, into the earth.
Yeah, that is excellent.
It was really, really intense.
It's important to make a comment here about this because understanding the different kinds of healings that you can have for yourself, it's really going to help you. And having a relaxed and healthy attitude about it. Here's the thing. All of these patterns where we suppress something in childhood or at any time, we pushed the energy down. It could be pushed down in a way that it's affecting our health, but it could be pushed down in a way that we are completely oblivious that we've done so. It's just sitting there as stale, stagnant energy. So guess what happens when you start to release something? You release something, and of course, it comes to the surface. Now, the funny thing is, the original incident probably was not literally a pain in the leg. It might have been fear or an upset, but it has been stored in the body, and it's so amazing that it will surface either as a brief unpleasant feeling or brief discomfort. So do notice it when it happens. Just breathe in a natural way. Just let it flow. Basically, you want everything to flow out of your feet or out of your hands or even out of your head. If it's slow to release, just take your time, and sometimes you need to do a little bit every day and just keep on whittling away at patterns. And we have one more question.
I also felt the physical movement we are trying to locate.
So you had physical movement that was happening?
Yeah, so that I could tell something happened at that time. When you have multiple, can you do it at once, or should we do it one at a time?
Here is the situation when you're doing healing work, for yourself or for anybody. You focus on one thing, but you focus, if you like, for a little bit of time on the one thing, and get that starting to flow, starting to release, do some healing for that one thing. Then you go to the other thing. Give it a little bit of attention. There's no very specific answer that can be given to the question, but the general answer is you do a little bit for this and a little bit for that, and you go back and forth, because it's probable that the two patterns are somehow connected. At the very least, they're both affecting you, and maybe they're both affecting the particular pattern that you're working with for the inner child. Okay.
And then my second question is, after we do some releasing, I guess we can use this chart again to see if it has cleared somewhat or not.
This is a good question. Just to briefly talk about that. When you're using the chart, you are using the chart to figure out what's happening. And as you do the healing, you're always glancing back at the chart because, yes, you will detect changes. If something seemed to be at a stuck lower vibration, you check again, and it's a higher vibration. And when you're working with the timeline, you find that you access the timeline in a certain place. You do a little bit of release, a little bit of healing, start to get some changes, and then you scan around the timeline because something else is going to come up. It could be that there's an earlier incident that somehow resonates with the same situation. So be creative, and you will find that you can use the charts to help you to be more grounded, more centered, and more precise in your work. Let me look at everybody. Okay. We are going to do a new way of working with the timeline. Now, what we did before, of course, was using the timeline to access a particular point in time. We are going to do an experiment right now of using the timeline, of using motion through time as a tool in itself. Motion through time as a healing tool in itself. And this seems like something out of science fiction, but that's the kind of healing work that is often the most effective. So you have your inner child self, cradling the inner child self as if you were holding a baby. Now, glance at the timeline and get a sense that you are at a certain point in time, and share the idea with the child self. Child self, we are going to be moving through time so that we can learn not to be fixated on any particular point in time. We are learning to move through time. Okay. Now, with your attention, slowly move forward in time, and you're still holding the child self. You are sharing a happy vibration with the child self, confident, happy vibration. And then you move back in time, and you could even move way back in time, but you are still holding the child self. And then come to the present. Good. You come to the present. You're still holding the child self. Now, that little experiment was pretty simple, but it is a very profound experiment because it shows you that you can be with the child self, and you can be with the child self in a way where the child self recognizes that you are there, and the child self feels relaxed and happy and safe. Now, that was just an experiment. Now we're going to use it for a very particular healing purpose. One of the things that happens to people is that they get stuck in time. It happens when they are afraid or sad or angry, or they're experiencing things that are too much to handle. That happens especially in childhood, and it creates something called a fragment. A fragment is a part of the self that was overwhelmed, and so it splits off from the main self. Now, it doesn't go away completely. It's still in the body. It's still in the aura. It's somewhat as if it is living on its own little island. Now, an island, of course, is still in the world, but it seems to be separate from the mainland. That's why we call it an island. So we are going to tune into those places in the child self that are ready for this experience right now. We will go through step by step. So what you are going to do, you are going to tune in, hold the child self. You are holding the child self, and you tune in, and you sense something in the child self that feels a little bit stuck. Maybe it feels cold. Maybe it feels scared. This is something that got stuck. It's a fragment that is not able to release its energy. Stuck energy, not able to release itself. Now, somewhere in the timeline, that event occurred. Don't try and figure it out with your rational mind. Just move along the timeline, trust your intuition. Let your intuition guide you. Let the truth of the situation guide you. There's some place along that timeline where that stuck place for the child self is hidden. And so you go to that hidden place in time. Now, start to move from that place in time. The funny thing is you could move forward in time or you could move backward in time. But simply start to slide through time. You're still holding the child self, and you're really tuning into those places that were stuck. And you're changing your relationship to time because you're showing the child self we don't have to be referenced forever to that point in time. We are sliding along the timeline. We are having fun with this. We are having fun moving through time. And you're holding that child self, and you're sharing your love and your concern, and you're being confident, and you're holding good energy so the child self can release. That is powerful. That's good. Now slide right into present time. Slide right into present time. Really hug your child self. Hug your child self and say, that was great. It's great to be in the present time now, isn't it? It's great to be in the present time now, isn't it? And just remind the child self, I love you. You're doing fine. I love you, and you are doing fine. And we have a question.
I have a hard time following because I cannot sense holding the child and moving.
Let's address what happens when issues come up, probably from the logical mind, saying, well, how far back and what's the right way to do it? This is a really creative process. This is something that's playing with the basic structure of reality, the basic structure of metaphysics itself. What we're doing is practicing moving through time just so that we can get the skill as adults and so that we can do some healing for the child self. The power of this technique is that it works because you are shifting through time. You don't have to do it in a particular way. At this stage, we are experimenting, And the more you experiment with it, a more detailed approach might show up for you. But even if you kept it simple, even if you only did this simple approach, finding where something's stuck and just shifting out of that time zone so that the child self doesn't have to be stuck there, that is going to make a huge difference for you, for the child self. It might even change reality in a healthy way because things are no longer stuck. Any other questions, please?
I'm kind of confused. I have no problem going back and forth in time, but I'm having a hard time holding on to the child to do that.
Difficulty having the power to do that?
No, I cannot imagine. I, as an adult self, visiting the child, no problem in different times. But I'm not quite sure when you say hold the child in trouble.
Let's talk about a really simple visualization that would help you do this. One part of the visualization, you are holding the child self. The other part, you are moving your finger along the timeline, and maybe that would be a better approach for some people. Don't so much think of going somewhere entirely. It's just that your finger is sliding along the timeline, and as your finger moves along the timeline, you are changing your relationship so that you are not stuck at certain points in time. So that would be a way to explore it.
Is there an age limit? Because when I first did it, I immediately went and it was like 2. And so I just went from there. And then later when I tried it, it said 18.
Right.
So what do you do if it's more not a child? Does it matter?
Okay. Thank you, Left Brain, for bringing this question up. The question, I'm going to restate this if I may. The question is, if you're doing a process for your inner child and an 18-year-old self shows up, is that okay? And the answer is, yes, it is okay. It's always okay if some aspect of the self shows up. Now, the reason for that, the patterns that you have, as we noted earlier, in childhood probably originated in a past life. So it's okay if you're doing an inner child process and a past life shows up. Likewise, you're doing a process for a 2-year-old and suddenly the 18-year-old self shows up. Well, naturally, because there was something that didn't get handled, and so it was still an issue at age 18. So very common situation. That's the logical mind that wants to know, is it okay? The answer to the logical mind is just relax, it's okay. Yes, please.
I was going back in time. I started out, I was holding a female child, but when I went back, I saw a male, like I felt a male child. And it's happened before for me where they're kind of split. So how do you integrate those?
Okay. Actually, this is a deep question that has a number of components, but briefly addressing each component. The way the mind works and the way the soul works, mind and soul, which is what you are multifaceted and multidimensional. And what that means is sometimes in order to understand one aspect of yourself, you need to see or feel another aspect. Also, you are literally all these aspects. Everybody, men and women, are yin and yang. So we are comprised of male energies, we are comprised of female energies. So that's one explanation. But there's another one, and that is, as we noted earlier, patterns that are not healed repeat. And so you start off with the female child self in this lifetime, and then suddenly you start tracking different lifetime, different gender. Probably, though, the same pattern. See, that's why it's showing up. And that's where you need to start trusting the process and trusting your own intuition. You're doing the process, you're working on something, you're following the track of it, different seemingly improbable things show up. But not improbable really. It really makes sense that they showed up because they're aspects of the same pattern.
Hi. I was having a lot of success with being able to feel like I'm holding my inner child and I'm really relaxed, and she's just cuddling up against me, and we're integrated. And when we did the thing where we're finding an emotion and trying to move back and forth in time with it, I kind of went unconscious, and some body things are coming up that I now can associate with the emotion of anxiety, biting my nails, biting the inside of my lips, scratching my scalp, all these things that I've always, for years, been trying to deal with this, like, why do I have all these nervous habits? It's in this session just now really clear that it's my inner child's anxiety. And I went unconscious when we did that last exercise, and I don't even know what the last part of it was. And I think I'm needing a little help staying more present with staying in my adult self and not getting lost in the inner child's emotion.
I'm glad you brought this up, because this is exactly what we all need to practice. Let's tune into this. Let's talk about a technique that will make it easier for you to hold on to the adult self, and also it'll make it easier for you to hold on to present time. When you're working with the timeline, you, in your body, in your mind, you want to stay in present time, but you're just moving your attention along the timeline. So that's why sometimes it's useful to move your finger along the timeline. It's as if a finger of your attention is moving through time, but you, the core self, are staying in present time. So that's the answer to your question. Stay in your body, stay in present time, stay in the adult vibe so that you can be that helpful, healing adult for the inner child self. Now, when you're moving through time and the child is stuck somewhere in time, you move your finger along the timeline, but you, the adult, do not get too embroiled in the past, and you don't get too embroiled in the child's situation. Now, here's the paradox. You're totally present with the child. You're totally with the child, but you are not getting embroiled in it. So that's what I wanted to say about that. We are going to do some completion meditations. Let's tune into where everybody is at. We are going to do some permission meditations, because I can see that everybody's aura is bigger, but we need a little bit more acceptance of this. Okay, so tune into your aura and realize that you've released some old patterns. Your aura is stronger. Your aura is brighter. Just feel that bigger aura and actually get a sense that with your intention, you can extend. It's like when you get up in the morning and you take a big stretch and you really stretch your body. You can stretch your aura. Let your aura stretch now. Stretch to the walls of the room. Let your aura touch the walls of the room. Let your aura touch beyond the walls of the room. And as an adult, say to yourself, I really am okay. I can have a big, strong aura. I really am okay. I can have a big, strong aura. And now imagine that you're holding the child self and saying to the child self, you really are okay. You can have a big, strong aura. You really are okay. You can have a big, strong aura. Next step. Everybody's looking really bright. I want to get more integration between the light that's flowing in your core and your breathing. So breathe into your core. Get a sense that you're breathing into your depth. You are breathing into the deep essence of you. Get a sense that the deep essence of you existed in past lives. The deep essence of you existed throughout all time. The deep essence of you existed in childhood. The deep essence of you exists now. And in some form, the deep essence of you shall always exist. So feel into that depth. And hold your child self now. And get a sense that your child self is able to recognize that the child self itself is you. The child self is you, and the child self has always existed because you have always existed. the child self was moving through a passage of time called childhood. But that was then, and this is now. Now, at any time, if the child self seems to be stuck or needs help, you, the adult self, will be there. And that's okay. Okay. That's looking strong and bright. I want to wish you blessings, happiness, health, well-being, enlightenment, all good things, happy integrated reality, happy integrated love and light between you and your inner child self. Blessings to you on all levels.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Joel. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Good night, all.
Many blessings.
Blessings to all. That was great.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.